The holidays are in full swing, and it can be a challenge just to stay sane, let alone keeping your financial goals in mind and moving toward them. So, with that, here are my tips to stay sane in the middle of this crazy holiday season. They are very simple, but this is what I am doing and trying to remind myself of what I need to do to stay sane. They're free, you can do them immediately. So, here we go. Tip number one is to rely on my systems. And this is super important because in times of stress, studies have shown we tend to abandon things that we know how to do, especially around finances. So I was listening to Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich podcast, and there was a couple on, Lucas and Trin was the couple, and they were talking about how they'd taken a vacation, and Lucas said that on this vacation he did something he never does, which is he just turned off his brain and didn't even think about finances. And while he felt like he enjoyed the vacation, he got a rude awakening when he looked at the bill. And that was A, it was a shock, and B, it took him a while to get back into this swing of his watching his finances. So that was a big wake up, and Ramita mentioned that in times of stress, people tend to abandon their systems, and that is something that I am really working on keeping straight with during this holiday season. So I'm relying on my systems, and the two systems that work the best for me are tracking every single dollar I spend and making my wish list and checking it twice. So tracking my spending, again, becomes key. I'd gotten a little bit soft with that over the past couple months. I got better in this last month, but tracking my system is tracking my spending is so important, because even though I'm pretty good at avoiding impulse spendings, especially spending in the holidays, especially because there's a break in routine, it tends to get a little bit more challenging to keep my financial goals in mind. B, because there's a break in routine, it tends to be easier to, I don't want to say fall victim to those impulse spendings, but it tends to be easier to not keep up with or not be mindful of my spending. And there are tons of opportunities to spend mindlessly, right? So keeping track of my spending is important because it lets me know what I spent and where, and then be able to sort of anticipate ways that I can avoid that spending. And then making a wish list is always important, because if it's not on the list, it doesn't get purchased. And that's kind of what I try to stay to very firmly. I would say I'm 80% list-based. I mean, I stay to my list 80% of the time, and maybe 20% of the time I go off list, but I tend to be pretty good at that. I want to remember to do that. So for example, and how the list has really come in handy is, I went grocery shopping. I decided to make this spice cake on Friday, and there were all these ingredients that I needed. And I am someone that can drive myself crazy looking for the best price. Ultimately, I decided I want to go for readily available ingredients rather than going on this crazy trek. I want to go with what's easy and simple rather than driving myself nuts to save $5. So I was buying different ingredients: fruit, rum, butter, flour, sugar, cherry brandy. And I can drive myself crazy looking for the best deal, but I also want to remember how much I spent and where, and that way I'm not in for a rude surprise at the end of the month. So relying on systems, especially during times of stress, which the holidays are very stressful. It can be a positive stress, but relying on my systems is so important. So that's tip number one, is to rely on and really depend on, keep up with those systems. And it doesn't have to be a big, long thing for me. I can sit in my bed, can lay in bed at the end of the night and just track my spending on a Google Sheet. That's what I do. Thing two is to think about what's really important. And this is something I do on the daily, kind of taking a deep breath and saying, oh, what's really important is spending time with the people I love and not letting myself get in the way of that. That's for me, because I am someone that tends to take things really personally, and I tend to be a little bit defensive. So for me, releasing that and saying what's really important is spending time with friends and family and cultivating those relationships. So as long as I have that very firmly in my mind, it's easier for me to remember that that is important and to let my ego go. That's probably one of the biggest things. I've heard the saying, ego is edging God out, EGO. So I try to remember to keep my higher power firmly in view and not think about defending myself in every situation. So thinking about what's really important. Thing number 3 is to appreciate the little moments. So, for example, on Sunday, I had a super productive day. On Sunday, everyone was tired, so we were just kind of hanging out. It was like 11:30, and we'd showered and gotten dressed, but hadn't really done anything with the day. And we were just sitting around, and I don't know why, but I had the TV on, and the Hallmark Channel was on, and I got sucked into a movie. And we got sucked into a movie, my entire family. I was watching this movie and was like, oh, it looked really good. It was called Take Me Back for Christmas. It's about a woman who wakes up and has everything she wanted: successful career, fabulous apartment, and fantastic life, except she wasn't married to her husband. And so the movie was her dealing with, she knew him, and they had decided to split up. They hadn't stayed together in her dream life. So I got sucked into it, and then my husband came and started watching it too, or laying on the couch. And I'm not someone who typically goes for that Hallmark Channel movie at all, but I got sucked into this one, and I'm like, all right, well, that's 2 hours of my life I won't get back. But I'm like, it was actually really good, actually very charming, and it was actually really lovely to spend that time as a family just relaxing. And then I'm like, you know what, I can check that off my list, because that's something that we did, and that was a holiday moment, and I really enjoyed that. We all enjoyed that together. So cherishing that time is something that I am taking as a win, rather than beating myself up that I didn't get something done or get started sooner on something that day. So appreciating the moments is tip number 3. And tip number 4 is remembering to take time to feed my soul. This is something that I would like to be better about, in really cultivating appreciation and support of myself, because I tend to be really hard on myself, and then that leads me to get in a spiral of doom that leads me to not be productive and to not do the things that I know make me feel good. So feeding my soul for me includes things like maybe taking a moment to meditate. Again, in the middle of this holiday season, it can be a lot to take time to just be silent and be still, but also things that are good for my self-care. Things like exercise for me, that's yoga, or drinking enough water, or maybe some light cardio, stretching. My mat workout, I do the Tracy Anderson mat workout. So doing little things that keep me better and help me be my fullest self, because again, with the holidays, it's really easy in this time of stress to let go of the things that help keep me at my best. And those are very simple. Again, meditation, physical exercise, drinking enough water, being sure to get my vegetables in, being sure to get some protein in. So feeding my soul, but doing things that are ultimately good for self-care. So that's what I got for you. Those are my 4 tips on how to stay sane and deal with the holiday craziness. So hope that's been helpful. And let me know in the comments what you're doing to stay sane. I always appreciate hearing from you. Thanks for watching.